Welcome to the Hawkins Observer, a podcast where two half-lifelong friends recap and analyze every episode of Stranger Things as we prepare for the release of the final season this November.
As always, we'll give you a scene-by-scene recap, discussing the plot and developments, as well as sharing our thoughts, memories, and reactions.
Today, we pick up where we left off as Lucas, warns that the bad men are coming. But it's not the only radio call we hear in this episode either, as we see what Eleven can really do with a mama encouraging her. And the Wheelers' oblivious bill finally comes due.
So open up your curiosity doors with us as we dive into Season 1, Episode 7, The Bathtub.
Dive into the bathtub. I like that.
As the British say, the penultimate episode.
The penultimate episode
of Season 1.
Yep. Well, this one opens up with Mike gently wiping mud off Eleven's face. Elle looks in the mirror and she seems to miss her blonde wig, but Mike's like, "You don't need it." Eleven's like, "Still pretty?" And Mike is a little more forthcoming. He's like, "Yeah, really pretty." And then Mike's like, "Elle, I'm happy you're home." And she's like, "Me too." They look like they're about to kiss, but then Dustin busts in and says, "Guys, it's Lucas. I think he's in trouble." And they can hear him something on, like he's saying something on the radio, but it's just not coming in very good. And then they come to realize that he's saying they know about 11. The bad men are coming. So Mike runs upstairs, looks out the window. He sees vans kind of parked outside. Uh, his mom's on the phone and she says something like, "I know Nancy and he have been spending time together. So who is she talking to?" Then Mike sees more vans roll up and Dustin's like, "We need to leave right now." And Mike, before he runs out, tells his mom, "If anyone asks where I am, tell them I've left the country." So they run out of the basement, they grab their bikes, and as they're fleeing, Dr. Brenner and Eleven briefly make eye contact. The vans speed off to chase the boys while they're on bike. They hear Lucas finally clearly, and they say, "Meet at Elm and Cherry." They start riding through people's backyards to get away. It's like this, classic chase scene. There's even a van that fishtails at one point. uh, then it seems like all is lost because they've got most of the vans behind them, and one is coming straight at them on this road. And then 11 uses her powers to flip the oncoming van over the boys on the bikes, and it crashes in the road behind them and essentially forms a roadblock. Dr. Brenner gets out of one of the vans and he just kind of seems pleased, like, "That's my girl." This amount of energy exerted obviously makes Eleven tired. Lucas finally says, "That was awesome." And then Lucas, kneels down with Eleven and he says, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." And he puts a hand on her shoulder. And Eleven says, "Friends don't lie. I'm sorry too." And then Mike walks up and says, "Me too." And finally, he and Lucas shake hands.
Yeah, which is it's what they started out doing, in story time, maybe an hour or an hour and a half, 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
We mentioned at the end of last episode, this is just a continuation now, this episode of the same day.
Yep.
So we're kind of zooming in now on story. And so the boys are back together, both physically, Lucas is, they kind of joined together in the neighborhood.
Right.
And now the full party is together, including 11.
Yep.
And they're also now together relationally or, missionally, as they've
Yes.
let bygones be bygones. Lucas has apologized. 11 apologized. Everybody's on the same page now. But can we just talk about that scene where the van is coming right at them? They're just playing chicken on this road.
Yeah.
Where they're not going to divert. And maybe they assume 11 could do something. They don't really give us that indication, but
Nope.
As soon as we see 11 kind of looking, really intently, we're like, she's got to do something. And
Yep.
Sure enough, it's almost like the van hits an invisible pole. It
Yes.
like dents the front grill and bumper,
Uh-huh.
and it's almost like all that momentum at 40 miles an hour or whatever, just like it hits an invisible pole and then just flips, and then it's kind of a wide shot of them looking up as it flips over them
Such a
and
great
lands
scene.
perfectly in the road. And I noted too, Dr. Brenner gets out very calmly, just kind of walking slowly, and is
Yeah.
not checking the driver of the flipped van.
Nope.
Doesn't care at all, and watches as they ride away. And they end up in the same junkyard um, after they get away
Right.
as they were when 11 threw Lucas off of
Yes.
um, Mike. So they're back in that same junkyard, confirming that it probably is really close to that neighborhood.
Yep.
But yeah, they Mike and Eleven's kiss at the beginning is telling because it's not, 11 probably doesn't know what she's feeling. Mike
Right.
might not either, actually. But thankfully, we don't have to endure the awkwardness of that because Dustin busts in with the really important thing. And Lucas riding down the road yelling into the radio. He's got it strapped to his bike so he can, but he's frantic
Yep.
and for good reason. I mean, there's probably 8 vans that were chasing them around this neighborhood, and who knows what would have happened if they caught him. But
Right.
thankfully, they are safe and together in the junkyard.
Starting to feel like people are kind of disposable to Dr. Brenner. Because if you'll remember the one time Elle uses her powers when she gets thrown into her like confinement cell, and rather than
Yeah.
let them slam the door, she overpowers them, possibly kills them. And Dr. Brenner just kind of steps over the bodies to check on, like to observe her. And here, like you said, that was interesting. Like he's not like worried about if the people in the van crashed and died. He's just like not, he doesn't care.
Yep. Not at all.
Uh,
But before we move on to the next scene, we care about you, our viewers. So if you would, please, if you've made it even this far into this episode, like and comment and subscribe and let us know who you are because we want to know who's watching.
that's right. Uh, from there, the credits roll. And after the credits, we see Hopper and Joyce pull up to the police station. They walk in, and sure enough, Jonathan's in handcuffs, and Joyce just gets mad immediately. Why is he in handcuffs? Take them off. And the other two police are like, well, he kind of assaulted a police officer. And they're like, he's not out of the hot water yet. Look what we found in his car. And they bring the box of supplies that Nancy and Jonathan had assembled at the Army surplus store. They drop it on the counter in front of Jonathan as if to say, not only did you assault an officer, what's all this stuff in your trunk? And Hopper sees the stuff and he's like, let's go talk to me in my office. And Jonathan's like, I can't remember the question Hopper asked, but basically, like, he's like, what did you see while you're doing this? And Jonathan's like, you wouldn't believe me. And Hopper goes, why don't you give me a try?
Yeah. Uh, we can imagine the fear in the deputy's mind when they open the trunk of Jonathan's car and find all this monster hunting equipment after Jonathan just got in a fight. Like, that's
Yeah,
worth. But Hopper wants to separate Jonathan from the rest of the police investigation because he wants to kind of level with him, or wants Jonathan to level with him.
right.
And it's funny when I watched this last rewatch when Jonathan is like, "You wouldn't believe me." I said out loud before Hopper did, "Try me," and he said, "Why don't you give me a try?" Because
Yeah.
we we think that he will believe him.
Yeah, Hopper's been seeing plenty of weird things himself, so not much can come from Jonathan's mouth and surprise him.
Yeah. And
From
just
the,
coming out of the ice house, he's ready to believe Jonathan.
yeah. From there, we cut to the Wheeler's house, and Mrs. Wheeler's in the basement, and she finds a strand of blonde hair in the basement. Uh, Meanwhile, the doorbell's frantically ringing, and old passive Ted answers it, and it's who we've come to know as the bad lady. She flashes a badge, okay, as if to say, I'm here on official business. We then see that these investigators or somebody, they're just boxing up evidence at the Wheeler's house and taking it somewhere. In the basement, there's a man who looks at Eleven's hideout. Dr. Brenner notices a yellow t-shirt. And then they're finally sitting down at the table with the bad lady, and Mrs. Wheeler's just irate and beside herself, and she's like, I don't understand. You think my son is hiding this girl? Like, what happened to her hair? And Ted's like, believe me, if we had a girl sleeping in this house, we'd know about it. And then Karen's like, this girl, what has she done? And, they're not really, the bad lady's not really giving them any answers. Like, basically, she's like, I can't tell you what she's done, and I just need you to stay calm. Finally, the bad lady doesn't get anywhere with the Wheelers. So Dr. Brenner sits down, and in his very um understated, calm, yet creepy tone, he's like, I understand how upsetting this is. We could tell you more, but I can tell you your son Michael is in real danger. We want to help him. We will help him. I give you my word, but you have to trust me. Will you trust me? And then Karen just shakes her head, yes. And then he's like, do you have any idea where your son might have gone?
Yeah. This is what I was talking about with the oblivious bill coming due. This is now the second time in this day that Karen Wheeler has spotted something in her own house that she can't account for. She opens Nancy's door with the little pin thing and finds the sleeping bag and pillow on the floor. They've
Uh-huh.
escaped out of the window. So she's like, "What? Who is Nancy hiding in her bedroom?" And then she goes down to the basement just a few hours later, maybe later that afternoon, and finds this hideout with a sleeping arrangement and a pillow, and then this blonde hair. And she's like realizing that she's not aware of what's going on in her house, probably for the first time.
Oh
And
yeah.
then she comes face to face with all these agents going through her house, and she's A, upset that they're doing this, but B, I think too, self kind of like taking it personally herself that she's like, I don't have any idea what's going on in my own
Right.
house. Maybe all of this is true. And when Ted says, we would know if Mike was hiding a girl here, and he turns to her and says, wouldn't we? And she's like, what am I supposed to say? Like
Yeah.
twice today, I've seen things that I did not know was going on. So um, Ted's all yeah. Um, Ted puts his finger right on it, and Karen's just like beside herself,
Yep.
and begrudgingly says that she's going to trust Dr. Brenner.
Yep. From there we cut to the four kids finally together, and they're basically just kind of rehashing or discussing like what do they know so far, like what could possibly going be going on. So as a result of Lucas's investigation, he's like, this gate, it has to be in the lab. And then they're like, but what is this lab? And they're like, it's government, it's military, it's energy. And then they're like, Lucas is like, yeah, there were soldiers out front. And they're like, well, they're probably just making weapons to like fight the commies. And about the time they say that, they hear a helicopter coming. They ditch their bikes underneath this abandoned bus and jump into this abandoned bus in order to just basically hide from the sound, hide from the helicopter.
Yeah, the boys are scared. I think Dustin asks, like, what do they make light bulbs? Because then someone of them mentioned energy,
Right.
and Lucas was like, no, weapons. And that's when they were like, oh
Oh,
no. Um, and that's they realized like we might be getting too close to this might not be fun and games like anymore. This is really dangerous. And they hear the helicopters, and Dustin is like, we're like, you're right, they're after us.
yeah.
So they jump in the bus.
It kind of reminded me of the bus from Into the Wild with Christopher McCandless, who just,
Yeah,
hides out in Alaska.
yeah, and it's not the last time we see that bus either.
Yep. From there, we cut back to the police station. Hopper, Joyce, Nancy, and Jonathan are all in Hopper's office, and Jonathan shows them the photo that he took that night of Barb sitting on the diving board and something behind her. And uh they're like, okay, we're probably seeing the same thing. They're starting to be like, okay, we're both been fighting this separately. And Joyce actually goes out to the hallway with Jonathan basically to reprimand him. Like, what if this thing took you too? Like, and then Jonathan's like, I thought I could save Will, and I still do. And then his mom's like, Jonathan, you don't have to do all of this stuff alone. You're not alone. Like that's his mom's biggest concern in that moment is why does my son think he has to like go it alone in the world? From there, we cut to some commotion in the office. There's someone's bursted in through the front doors, and it turns out to be Troy's mom, and Troy's there with her. And Troy's mom's like, a psychotic child broke my child's arm. And then Troy starts to describe the child and says she had no hair and she was bleeding from her nose and she could do things. And then Hopper's like, what kind of things? And Troy says two very related things. She can make things fly and make you piss yourself. And then, and he's like, she's always hanging out with those losers. And Hopper's like, what losers?
Yeah, this is really funny at the beginning where the goofy deputy who had his nose touched in during the fight, the scuffle earlier with Jonathan and Steve, is
Grazed.
like the Troy's mom says something about like your deputy here isn't whatever. And he interrupts her and goes, well, I'm an officer.
Mhm.
And yeah, corrects her. And Hopper's just trying to get her out. He's like, take a statement and then like,
Yeah.
kind of pantomimes to him to like wrap this up. But then when the kid starts talking about the girl, um, it piques Hopper's interest and he kind of asks him to keep going to describe what he saw.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when Hopper's spidey senses, as you've said, start going off that like this sounds like she can do things with her mind. We just
Yeah.
got out of the Ives house, like, you know, um, this there's more to this.
Yeah. From there, we cut to a bloodied Steve Harrington, and he's just sitting on the trunk of his own car. Tommy comes out of a gas station and has bought him some aspirin and a Coca-Cola. And Tommy and Carol are just still kind of making light of everything, like just the whole situation. There's nothing serious to Tommy and Carol. And Steve eventually has had it again, and he's like, "You're both assholes." And so, uh, it turns out that Tommy, we find out in this scene, Tommy was the one who actually spray painted that Nancy's a slut. And then Carol pipes in with, yeah, she's a slut with a heart of gold. So like Steve's trying to defend her, Tommy and Carol still throwing Nancy under the bus. And then Tommy and Steve almost like go to blows, like straight up parking lot fight. And then Tommy's like, you couldn't take Jonathan Byers, so I wouldn't recommend that.
Um, this is now the second person of the original four of Steve, Nancy, Tommy, and Carol to kind of split away from Tommy and Carol. Nancy's kind of already done that by
Uh-huh.
kind of brushing Steve off and um, leaving them in the hallway in that one scene a couple episodes ago. And now Steve is like kind of like Nancy's kind of right. Like he doesn't say that, but he sees them for who they are too, and feels some sort of other emotion. Like you guys are just you guys are the problem, and so he kind of splits off from them too,
Right.
and peels out. Does take the high road and doesn't start fighting Tommy in it, for real. But he yeah, he got beat up pretty bad by Jonathan, and
Just
and Tommy has
bloodied.
the audacity to tell him that he owes him $1.20, like um, through all that. But yeah, Steve peels out, um, and he's headed somewhere we don't know. We find out here soon, but
Isn't it
yeah,
perfect that he's the cool kid and he drives like a nice BMW? Like, of course you do, you
yeah.
freaking rich, popular
I wasn't
kid.
going to say anything about that, but yeah, BMW drivers had a reputation even back in 1983.
Yep. From there, we're back at the Wheeler's house, and we see an agent has a box of evidence from the basement, and we see there's a sleeping bag and the kids' DoD board game. So that's going out. From there, not far from the house, Hopper is actually observing what's going on with binoculars. So they're at a distance and they can see all of these black cars at the Wheeler's house. and they're like, "Oh, this is not good." And Nancy's like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go home. What about my brother? Like, I have to go home." Hopper's like, "Oh, heck no, you're not." And he's like, "If they're still there doing this, they haven't found your brother Mike yet." So instead, they go to the buyer's house, and of everyone there, like Jonathan obviously lives there. Hopper's been there, but Nancy hadn't been to the house since Joyce decorated it with Christmas lights. And Nancy walks in and goes, "Whoa!" And then Joyce grabs a radio.
Yep. They go into Will's room and are looking for the radio, which I was it's so funny how modern my thinking has become that I'm like, that thing would be dead by now. But like stuff didn't need a charge. Like they didn't need to plug it in. They
Right.
had probably a couple C batteries in it. And it's like those batteries were good until they were bad.
Yep.
And like a cell phone, you leave a cell phone for 4 or 5 days and it's useless. Um, but things that took batteries, so she finds it and um, they have an idea of how they are going to try to get a hold of Mike.
Yep. From there, we cut back to the bus where the kids are hiding out, and Nancy, sure enough, comes over the radio like, "Mike, Mike, this is your sister Nancy." And at first, the kids don't answer, like, "Is this a trick? Like, why is Nancy calling us on a radio? This doesn't seem right." And then the chief gets on, Chief Hopper, and he says, "We know you're in trouble. We know about the girl." And they still don't answer. And we're like, "Come on, like, take a risk or something." I don't know. But then finally, the boys reply, "Yeah, we copy. We're here." Phew.
Um, it's interesting too that that's Will's radio. Like they're probably all on a separate channel that only the three of them have or four of
Right.
them have.
Yep.
Um, so that's suspicious too. And they keep mentioning Lando Calrissian from Star Wars, who was, you brought into a trap similarly. So they're thinking in that imaginative term.
Yep.
But finally, Mike realizes we're in a really bad spot here. We don't really have any other options.
Right.
Uh, Trapped, kind of hiding out in this bus. So
Yep.
I'll reach out. Hopper kind of convinces him, I think.
Like, to trust that
Yeah, like
Hopper's on
Hopper.
their side.
Yeah, yeah,
From there, we cut to a very brief scene, but it is a scene that develops this person's character for essentially the rest of the, well, we know what happens the next couple seasons, and this really defines this person. We cut
yeah,
to Steve, still just looks bloody and messed up, and he has returned to the scene of the crime. He's returned to the movie theater, and someone has a ladder up front, like probably the manager, and they're trying to wipe away the graffiti. The and Steve just yells up, "Do you need a hand?" And the manager's like, "Did you have something to do with this?" And Steve's just like, "I just want to help."
yep. And he does. He hands him the rag and the cleaner or whatever, and Steve gets up and starts scrubbing it with
Yep,
the movie staff holding his ladder, and he's trying to make it right. That's where he was peeling out to when he left Tommy and Carol.
yep,
So he, even in his condition, he's not going to go home and shower and bandage it up. He's going to go right back and do the right thing.
yep. We gain a lot of respect for Mr. Harrington in that scene.
Yeah, we hope it's genuine. We think it is.
From there, we cut back to the Wheeler's house, and they're basically been told, "Don't leave, stay here," and they feel like they're prisoners. Like, these people are watching us, we can't leave. And then old Ted says, "Honey, we have to trust them. They're the government. They're on our side." And then Karen's like, do you think Nancy's also involved with this?" Ted's like, "With Mike? No."
Yeah, yeah. Continues his kind of milk toast ways of like, well, they said that we should trust him, so
Let's do
and then
it.
kind of chastises Karen for thinking otherwise. Like, what are you talking about? They're the government. They're on our side.
Ah, oh, not a
But
skeptic
then
bone in his body.
Karen does say, as Brenner and that lady are walking away, they're looking out the window, and she says, "That man gives me the creeps."
True.
So she got a weird vibe from him too.
Yep. but Ted doesn't have that capacity. Ted has no spidey senses ever.
Yeah,
Uh, we cut back to the bus and Dustin's pacing. He's a pacer. It's not the first time he's done this, but he's pacing.
yeah,
Dustin's like, I don't feel good about this. Lucas is like, would you ever feel good about anything? Then they hear the sound of vehicles approaching. It's two of those unmarked black cars, and guys get out with guns. The guys, they see the stashed bikes under the bus, so one of them assumes that the kids are probably hiding out on the bus. He gets his hand in the bus door and starts to open it. Boom! Hopper's on this scene and knocks out this first guy and also takes out the other two somehow. We're not sure how, but Hopper's essentially taking out all of these agents. And Hopper just hops on the bus and goes, all right, let's go. Let's go. So he left Nancy and Jonathan and Joyce, at the buyer's house to wait. And then he rolls up with the kids. And now this team, this maybe I don't even call it team, but this finally this strange group of people are together and assembled. Nancy and Mike hug each other because they realize there's some bad stuff been going on, so they hug each other, and then Nancy notices Eleven and goes, "Is that my dress?"
yeah.
Cuts to the inside where the first thing, at least the first thing we're led to believe, is Mike is trying to explain the concept of a portal or what we think is going on in the upside down. So he gives the imagery of the flea and the acrobat. Uh, and then Hopper says, "Is this place underground near a large water tank?" And Eleven's like, "Yes." So we know that she now knows that Hopper has seen, 11 understands that Hopper has been investigating and been really close to where she's been experimented on, I should say. Then they say, "Can you reach Will?" And she says, "Yes." And Barbara. So they gather around the kitchen table with just the walkie talkie. 11 starts concentrating. The lights flicker, but then 11 looks sad and just says, "I'm sorry, I can't find them." And so she is disappointed in herself. It looks like she's in the bathroom, kind of wiping tears from her face. Then she looks at the buyer's bathtub, and the boys are still like explaining other things to the other four. And then 11 walks out and goes, "The bath. I can find them in the bath."
It's probably the last thing Eleven wants to do. I mean, all these flashbacks of her trauma in
That's
the
true.
deprivation tank, but um, knows that she can reach out to them. So the beginning here of them in the bus, we don't see Hopper beat up these agent guys,
Right.
but because it shows the bus, we kind of don't know who's getting beat up. Are the agents beating up Hopper? Is Hopper beating up the agents? And then it's revealed when Hopper's the one who comes onto the bus,
Right.
and the boys are still so in shock and kind of scared that they don't take his immediate instruction. But
Yeah.
um, he desperately wants to get everybody together, and kind of so do we. I mean, this whole season,
Yes.
6.5 episodes now, has been so and so knows this, but then these people don't know that they know this, and
Yep.
these people are experiencing new things, but 11 doesn't know anything about these people, and there's so much like
Yeah.
information that's not being shared among all of our main characters,
Yep.
and they're at the buyer's house in the dark as everybody kind of rolls up. Um, everybody now is together. The only people that we've kind of met so far that aren't there on the good side are the Wheeler parents, and
Right.
um,
And
but like,
Steve.
yeah, and Steve, yeah. But we've got you know Jonathan and Joyce. Buyers are back together again.
Uh-huh.
Hopper's now on the same page. They know about 11. They meet her for the first time. Earlier in the day, they were learning about Jane for the first time, really, from
Yeah.
Terry and her sister. And now here she is in the
Same
flesh.
day.
And yeah, Mike and Dustin and Lucas have this information about how the Mr. Clark explained the gate and the portal with the flea and the acrobat. And it's like such a satisfying scene that we're finally kind
Yes.
of seeing everybody together,
Yep.
and now everybody's on the same page,
Mm.
and all the information has been shared, and yet we still have this unresolved kind of unresolution of 11 can't find Will and Barbara with just their little walkie-talkie.
Right.
Um, but then she has the idea of the bath, and it takes a lot of courage, I think, for her to suggest that because,
Yep.
like I said, she has such bad memories of that, but knows it's she's the only one who can do it, and it's the only way that they're going to be able
Yep.
to. She's going to be able to reach out to them, and she wants to.
Yep. We're not left with the impression that because she couldn't use the walkie-talkie to find them, that everyone's in despair. Like, I think the boys know, like, because they've had to do that before. Like, okay, the walkie-talkie didn't work before, and we had to go to
Right.
the lab. So I don't think that they
Yeah.
were like devastated that she wasn't able to find them right away, because they just go right on explaining something else while Eleven's in the bathroom. So,
Yeah. Yeah. They know that she just needs a stronger radio. But 11 also knows more than they do that it's not just that she needs more kind of isolation.
right. From there, one of the roughest cuts of the whole series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
From there, it cuts from the buyer's house to something horrible happening, but it's a movie. It's a horror movie that Mr. Clark, the science teacher, is watching on a date, looks like. I don't think it's his wife. I think he's on a date.
Yeah.
Has her over at the house. They're watching a horror movie. And the phone rings, and he's like, I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. He's like, he picks up, Mr. Clark, it's Dustin. I have a science question. And Mr. Clark's immediately like very polite, but he's like, hey, bud, it's late. It's after, I don't
Yeah.
typically do things like this on the weekends or after whatever.
Yes. Saturday.
And then uh Dustin doesn't hear it. He's like, do you know anything about uh sensory deprivation tanks? And like, why do you want to know? Like, for fun, of course. That's why I want to know. So Dustin makes up a lie for fun. And then again, Mr. Clark's like, come on, bud. Let's talk about it when we see each other in person in school next. And then Dustin just lays it on him. And he's like, Mr. Clark, you said we should never stop being curious. And if you don't answer me right now, like you're putting an end to my curiosity. So Mr. Clark essentially gives in, and we see Dustin's just copiously taking notes of everything he says. Gets off the phone, and he explains to the rest of the group that if we're going to create a sensory deprivation tank for 11, we need lots of salt and a kiddie pool. And someone's like, how much salt? He's like, 1,500 pounds. So from there, everyone shows up to the high school, and they must have like a pretty good stash of like salt for when it gets cold. It's that time of year when you start salting the sidewalks. Um, so everyone pulls up, and they kind of all just go into action and start doing a couple different tasks. Um, Hopper, someone says like, even if we find Will in there, what are we going to do about that thing, that monster? And Hopper's like, I'm going to find him. You got to trust me on this. I'm going to find him. It was Jonathan. Like, what do we do? In
Yeah.
the middle of the gym, Lucas and Dustin are tasked with unrolling the big pool, and it's not going well. It's kind of funny. It's played for jokes. Nancy and Mike are trying to break into the field house. Mike tries to do it, can't do it. Nancy takes a rock and just knocks the lock off, and Mike's impressed with his big sister finally. Uh, and then Nancy and Mike start kind of having a sisterly, brotherly talk. Like, Nancy's like, what does 11 eat? And Mike's like, candy and leftovers and Egos. And Nancy was like, I knew you were acting weird. So basically, they're like eye to eye, and Nancy's like, hey, no more secrets, okay? And Mike's like, yeah, like that would be nice. So Mike's like, so do you like Jonathan now? And Nancy's like, no, no. Do you like 11? And Mike's like, what? No, ooh, gross. So they play that off real quick. There's some secrets there already.
Yeah.
Um, and then we see Joyce and 11 together, just the two of them, which is a strange combo. And Joyce is working on a mask for 11, so she won't be able to see anything. And Joyce is just very kind to her and says, you're a very brave girl. Thank you. Like, I'm going to be there with you the whole time, 11. You don't have to worry. And she's like, Are you ready? And I was like, yes. So then we see the group. They're at the pool. They're adding water. They're trying to get the temperature just right. They're adding salt to the pool. It's not enough yet. Justin tries to float an egg and it sinks. Keep adding salt. Finally, an egg floats. So they're like, all right, this pool is ready for deprivation. Then Elle puts on the mask and you see it's just covered with duct tape, but she can't see anything. And she enters the pool, starts floating. They all kind of sit around the circumference of the pool. And as she's floating there, the lights start flickering. And sure enough, Elle gets herself mentally or whatever into the big dark void of a room. And she starts walking in this blackness, but we can hear like water as she's walking. And off in the distance, she sees something, just one thing, like a lump of something. She gets closer and closer and closer. And she goes, Barb. And she gets closer. And sure enough, she sees that Barb is dead. In fact, something crawls out of Barb's mouth. And all 11 knows to yell is gone. And she just yells, God, 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 as if to say she's dead. Nancy, completely distraught about that. But Joyce is right there with 11 physically going, we're right here. 11, we're here. Don't be afraid. It's okay. It's okay. You're safe. You're safe. So 11 stays in the darkness, in the deprivation, sensory deprivation. And she keeps walking and she comes upon Castle Byers. It's the only thing here. Black, void, Castle Byers. She pulls back the curtain, goes in, she kneels, and we see Will is there. And he's kind of asleep. He just looks so sickly. And, he comes to, and 11 tells him, your mom, she's coming for you. And then Will manages to say, hurry. Uh, and 11's like, okay, stay where you are. We're coming just a little longer. And then for some reason, as she's talking to Will, the castle just dissolves around her and she panics and wakes up. And Joyce is like, I've got you, I've got you. And so Hopper's like, okay, so this fort, where is it? Hopper walks out, Jonathan walks out, Joyce walks out. Hopper wants them to stay. Joyce is like, the heck, I'm staying. I'm going with you. Jonathan wants to go. And Joyce is like, no, you have to stay. So sure enough, Joyce and Hopper take off. Nancy's inside, leaning against the wall by herself. So Jonathan walks in, sits next to her to kind of comfort her because now we know that Nancy knows that Barb is probably dead. Uh, Nancy's like, we have to get back to the station. And she's like, your mom and Hopper are just walking and they're like bait. We can't just sit here and let them let that monster get them too. And Nancy's like, I want to finish what we started. I want to kill it. Hopper and Joyce pull up to the Hawkins lab to the fence. Old Hopper cuts the lab fence again. Quickly cut to Jonathan and Nancy sneaking into the police station to grab that box of supplies, the bear traps, the bullets. Hopper and Joyce get caught immediately. Like the lights come on, the the guards descend, and Hopper's just like, let me do the talking. And then in the upside down, we cut to Will, and he's shaking. He's trying to sing. Apparently, singing is very comforting to him. Uh, but while he's laying there, he hears the monster outside making all of its terrible sounds. The monster roars just outside Castle Byers, and the castle is essentially just blown to smithereens. And then the ending credits roll. That's a big last scene.
Yeah, it was kind of like now that we've got all the people together, we don't have as many, yeah, kind of separate storylines that are all kind of waiting. But some funny things that happen are when the Mr. Clark is like trying to get Dustin off the line because for
Uh-huh.
all he knows, Dustin's just a kind of nerdy kid, but he's a good teacher. And then Dustin says, "You always told us to open every curiosity door, and when you're not answering this question, you're keeping my curiosity door locked." And but Mr. Clark obliges, and you can imagine how even though he's kind of annoying, he's probably like kind of into Dustin's probably writing down some formula, which is how they arrive at the 1,500 pound salt.
It makes you wonder, does Mr. Clark's date is she annoyed by the fact that he takes this call and helps the student? Like, this guy doesn't have
Yeah,
work-life balance. Or is his date like, listen to
yeah,
this guy. He
yeah,
loves his students. He's even there for them on nights and weekends.
yeah, yeah. I'd love to see this scene cut back to their apartment, and she's like, either she's gone, she's just left while he's doing this talking,
Yeah.
or she's like, you know, like
Yeah.
like that was really hot.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I mean, um, their plan comes together kind of in these quick cuts of rolling this pool out. And obviously, the boys don't know, they've never filled up a kiddie pool. You have to put water in it for it to stand on
Right.
its own because the sides just fall in. It doesn't matter how you do it. Um, but yeah, they've got the thermometer. Lucas is reading the thermometer, and they've got Nancy at the controls going warmer, colder, and it's
Mm-hmm.
they're all hands on deck here. But the most important thing that I noticed was just that massive juxtaposition between what we've seen Papa say to 11 in the lab in the flashbacks, and now what Joyce is telling her as kind of this new voice, this new encouraging voice before
Yeah.
this is going to start, where she's
Yeah.
like, Papa was saying, it's after you, it wants you, which is not comforting. Um, and even in his little, kind of hushed tone, it doesn't reassure her at all.
No.
But Joyce, on the other hand, now is saying, I'll be right there. You're safe. And then she says right before it starts, if it gets too scary, if it's too much for you, just let me know, or you can leave whenever you want. Whereas
Yeah.
Papa was saying, stay there, make contact, like kind of take it
Yep.
in a way. And Joyce is not doing that. And so the big climax of this scene is after she sees Barb, she would have otherwise given up right there.
True.
But even in that dark void, she's hearing the echo of Joyce in the gym in real time saying,
That's right.
I'm here, you're safe, you know, everything's fine. And you can see her calm down even in that kind of trance state in that void.
Yep.
And as a result of that, is able to push through and find Will and make real contact with him. I mean, they don't have a kind of it's not a radio conversation. It's a real in person. She's holding his hand in that place, and then when he says hurry, it comes over the walkie talkie in the gym, so they all hear Will's actual voice,
Yep.
which obviously the boys have heard and Joyce has heard through the wall, but now Hopper is hearing it and Nancy is hearing it, and um,
Is it Jonathan's first time too?
Jonathan is hearing it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they actually can, they know that she's made real contact with him because they hear Will's actual voice
Yep.
in that place. And poor Barb has, not only is she dead, she's been dead for a while, and what's coming out of her mouth isn't inconsequential. It's like a slug, kind of something that's alive. That's it's
Yes.
not like when you hit up at the first scene in that one episode. It's that little slug thing is coming out of her mouth. We see that for the first time,
Right.
but yeah, when they get back to the buyer's house, or I mean, when we cut back to the buyer's house and in the Upside Down, Will is in the fort. We believe him to be safe because he's probably been there hiding out. He'll leave Castle Byers to make contact with his mom or whatever,
Right.
but he's kind of holed up there.
It's
Um,
it's kind of leading us to believe that this monster, like we know it doesn't have a face, it just seems to have a mouth with a bunch of teeth. But
mhm.
maybe this monster, its senses aren't honed in to actually, find someone that's hiding in a fort. Like there's something about this
Yeah.
creature's senses that it's not poking its head in looking for Will. So something is,
So so far, all we've seen draw this creature is blood,
yep,
and when Nancy steps on that vine.
yep,
So Nancy wasn't bleeding,
yep,
and she still gets the attention of the Demogorgon when she steps on the vine in the Upside Down. So
Yep.
that does it, and blood we've seen several times. So Eleven's nose is not bleeding in her contact with Will in the trance,
Yep.
and we don't suspect that the monster can sense 11 has been there, although maybe that could be an explanation as to why all of a sudden now the monster busts through
That's true.
that fort. Um, and we don't really know what happens to Will because that's the last thing we see is just all these um, sticks and logs that he's kind of fashioned crudely together as a 10-year-old would do for this fort are just kind of blown to smithereens, and all of the the flag and the fabric and stuff, it's all just kind of gone, and we
Right.
don't see what happens to Will. But yeah, when 11 comes out of the trance, Joyce is there to comfort her, thank her. You did such a good job. She's so over the top encouraging.
Right.
Like, that's why I said in the intro, like a mama. Like we've seen how Papa treats her,
Right.
which is obviously kind of a misnomer anyway, because he's just a kind of a bloodthirsty researcher who doesn't care for her at all.
Right.
Um, Joyce actually does and makes contact with that, and so now they know what's going on, and we don't know what happened to Will.
So what are we to believe about Eleven's powers just based on this? It's as if we've seen her, Papa or Dr. Brenner showed her a photo of someone, and then she can go into deprivation and just find the person as we assume in the real world. So when she found the Russian that was dressed in like a military looking uniform, we assume that she found that person in the real world, not the upside down.
Right.
But here she's tasked with searching the upside down for somebody, and sure enough, she's able to find what she was asked to find. So, what are we to make of her powers right now?
That's a great question. And I think that is probably the biggest. Again, if you missed the first couple episodes, Chris and I both have admitted this is not our genre of entertainment normally. So that's probably my biggest question mark. Even a bit of like, I wish that we plot wise, I wish they maybe would have explained that better.
Yep.
Um, the only thing I was thinking of when you were asking that was Terry Ives' sister says, when she's explaining what they were doing with these experiments, says they were trying to expand the boundaries of the mind
Yep.
with all these crazy drugs. And she said LSD mostly, but
Mostly.
there's presumably something else that they were experimenting with, ayahuasca or, whatever. We don't know.
Yep.
And so by whatever, method, Terry Ives' daughter, Jane, inherited or picked up or whatever some of these abilities, these mind expanding abilities.
Uh-huh.
So maybe we're just supposed to kind of go with it that Jane has these abilities, and they're not superhuman to the extent that she's just like invincible. She pays a real consequence whenever she taps into this.
Yes.
um, She's extremely weak and tired. She bleeds out of her nose. I think we've even seen her bleed out of her ear at one point.
Oh, yes.
Both nostrils. Um, you know, Foreshadowing, we see bleeding out of other places as well.
Yep.
And she, you know, can't just kind of summon this at whatever time. So part of her time in the lab was Papa kind of training her how to use this. And we've already seen too her not be able to control it.
Right.
When she screams at the junkyard and kind of throws Will or Lucas off of Mike, she's surprised by that herself.
Yep.
Um, so sometimes she can control it, sometimes she can't. The locating ability seems to be something that she can control.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it still freaks her out. She's still not super comfortable with it. It's still very new to her,
Right.
kind of relative to what it's probably capable of doing. Um, so
I think another
that's
thing
what
that
I would.
Another thing that we don't know yet, and I honestly can't remember if we find out, is if something is physically manipulated in the upside down, like we just saw Will's castle buyers seemingly get obliviated. If something is manipulated in the upside down, does it somehow affect the real world? Or is it two separate worlds at this point? Like when something, obviously, when something is created in the real world, like castle buyers, it's being made in the
Yeah.
upside down. But if something is destroyed in the upside down, is it somehow also destroyed in the real world? We don't know that yet.
There's two different answers, I think. One is we, as we've watched the coming seasons, some of that does get explained, which we won't spoil here. And I don't even remember it well enough to probably spoil it accurately either.
Neither.
Um, we do know that electricity does kind of carry over from the upside down to the real world, which is why
Hmm.
Will is able to communicate with his mom. So that veil is thin that Will can communicate with, and I think later in the next episode we see that as well, lights flickering in real time from the upside down to the real world. Um, but the other thing is Barb gets taken to the upside down, but then she is legitimately actually killed there. She dies there.
That's true.
So she doesn't have a alternate personhood in the upside down. She's really there, and so is Will. Um, so it's not that anything happens in the upside down isn't real or doesn't have real world consequences, because it does in terms of your person can be destroyed there.
Yep.
But I don't think that the castle buyers being destroyed in the upside down necessarily translates that to the real world, as evidenced by the fact that when the monster busts through Joyce's wall, the wall is still there. It heals itself,
Oh
and the tree
yeah.
heals itself. And so there is kind of this veil that kind of comes and goes between the upside down and the real world.
Right.
Um, and so I don't think that if Castle Buyers were to be destroyed in the upside down, that it would be. But again, we get a little bit more of that explanation as to why that is in later seasons. I think season 4, maybe even somebody finds that out, season 3 or 4.
Gosh. There's so
But yeah,
few there's so few shows that encourage speculation, you know, like this.
yeah. Well, and I was thinking about this too. This is a show that's set in a real place at a real time,
Yes.
unlike a Marvel movie that is kind of this separate world that has its own rules. Like this is the real world. This is Hawkins, Indiana, 1983.
84.
We're supposed to believe that everything that happens here could happen in real life,
Right.
which is why I referenced that scene with the flea and the acrobat being so important, because I think that's the connection between a totally fantasy world like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or
Yep.
Marvel movies to this that makes it like plausible
Yep.
that this could happen in real life because of the physics of you know time space relationship. And
Energy and yeah. Yep.
this is like theoretical physics, which Mr. Clark says several times in that scene when he's explaining it to the boys. Theoretically,
Yeah. They're all like, yeah,
they're all like, yeah, yeah,
theoretically.
yeah, we understand that you mean theoretically, but we actually believe that the theories about this are actually might be happening in real life.
Absolutely. Jeez. Well,
Well, 7 down and one more to go in season 1.
yeah, it's like 8 in this season and then 9 in season 2, 8 in season 3, 9 in season 4, and then for the final season back to 8.
Yeah, I think they get a little bit longer too, but they also become more like what we've seen in this last episode. People are kind of there are more scenes where everybody kind of knows what the deal is, but then other things happen, and so we'll continue to recap these scene by scene and episode by episode
Yep.
as best we can.
Yep.
Um, so so we have what you said, 9, 8, 9,
Starts
8.
no 8, 9, 8, 9,
Oh,
8,
8, yeah.
9, 8.
So the Duffer Brothers are masters at like Easter eggs. Are they trying to tell us something in that?
Maybe it's like a code, somehow some sort of code to get us all to the upside down.
That's the whole thing this whole time. It's just a combination we've just been
Yeah,
missing.
simple.
Well, the next elevator I'm in with the keypad, I'm trying that. 8, 9, 8, 9, and I'm sure I won't tick off everybody on floors 8 and 9 who are just wondering why the elevator just keeps going, just going up and down
Yep.
while they're waiting. So, thank you for coming along with us. Again, if you're enjoying these, or even if you're not, and you're just watching them because you're a friend or family who are doing this, please like and comment so that we know that you're doing that. But yes, we love that you're watching these or listening to them. We're having fun doing them. So, with that being said, we will see you all for the finale of season 1 here on the Hawkins Observer.